Welcome to Past the Outlet, episode 37. I'm your host, Mikal Benjamin, joined as always by my wingman, Chris Patrick. Chris, I feel like 2001 Jim Mora. Playoffs? Chris, how are you feeling tonight, man?
We're talking about the playoffs. Man, I'm doing good, Mike. I'm glad to be back here talking about basketball. I know we just got done with the madness of March and the NBA season is now officially over, but that doesn't mean there isn't plenty to talk about. And I'm still licking my wounds from losing fantasy basketball, coming up just short. But as the 4 seed going in, I think I had a pretty good run making it to the finals. But Mike, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Hey, go ahead, pat yourself on the back, but we are going to give a shout out to my brother-in-law. He was the best team in our fantasy basketball season, the whole season long, so shout out to him. But Chris, here on Past the Outlet, you know we break down the beautiful game of basketball, and tonight the NBA postseason is upon us. The best of the best look to battle for supremacy. And of course, before we kick off any series, the NBA play-in tournament starts tomorrow night. But before we get too far into it, you know we're going to have to break down that 7-8 seed matchup against the Portland Trail Blazers. Of course, Chris is going to bring us the news from around the net. And tonight on the Outlet Point Guard, we'll look back at the years of a Trail Blazers legend whose career ended way too soon. But if you're here with us live, watching the playback on Valley Sports Plug YouTube or listening on podcast streaming services, you know we love y'all. Make sure you subscribe to the VSP YouTube channel. Leave a like on this video and click that notification bell so you can stay up to date with everything going on here at Valley Sports Plug. Chris, let's get to work. Obviously, the 2026 NBA playoffs kick off officially on Saturday, April 18th. So let's take a look at those matchups. And of course, you know, we are Western Conference guys. So let's start in the Eastern Conference. And obviously, there's still some things to be determined. The first seed Detroit Pistons and Cade Cunningham coming back from the collapsed lung, waiting to see who they'll take on. But, of course, we do know some matchups. The 4th seed Cleveland Cavaliers, Donovan Mitchell and James Harden taking on Scotty Barnes and the Toronto Raptors. The 3rd seed New York Knicks, old friend Mikal Bridges, Jalen Brunson taking on the surprise Atlanta Hawks and Jalen Johnson and CJ McCollum. And then a team to be reckoned with, the 2nd seed Boston Celtics will be taking on either the Philadelphia 76ers or the Orlando Magic. Chris, let's start right there. What are your thoughts about the Eastern Conference? What are some matchups that maybe are catching your eye and some guys that you're keeping an eye on through these playoffs to start?
Yeah, man, I feel like I was a little bit off with my predictions on the East last year. So we'll see how in tune I am with the East this year. I do, for a 6 seed, really like the Atlanta Hawks. I think they're getting hot at the right time. They're playing pretty cohesive basketball. I think you still got to be worried about the Cleveland Cavaliers and Donovan Mitchell. I think James Harden has assimilated into that team very nicely. And the Detroit Pistons, Mike, keep me honest here. They're getting Cade Cunningham back for this push, aren't they?
Oh, he's ready to go, man. He's ready to go.
See, and that guy is a difference maker right there in and of himself. Durant has also been playing very strong. So I think the Pistons are going to be a dangerous team. Of course, everyone knows the Boston Celtics got Jason Tatum back. So it's incredible that even with him being gone for over, I feel like 3/4 of the season, they were still able to finish with the 2nd seed. I think Boston's going to be dangerous. I think there's honestly a lot of intrigue in the East. As far as like these play-in teams, I wouldn't say I'm necessarily too high on any of them. I think the Heat have really gone downhill recently. I know the Hornets were kind of the darling of the NBA at certain points during this season, but I just think they're still too young and a little green for making a deep playoff run. But Mike, as far as maybe a sleeper potentially, I do like the Orlando Magic in a lot of ways. But again, similar to the Hornets, I feel like they're still a little bit young, could be a little inexperienced, but you never know. It's always possible for these teams to capture lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, I got to echo exactly something that you said. The Atlanta Hawks team, we talked about them being sleepers before the season started. And obviously, with everything that transpired with Trae Young, you weren't really sure. But the emergence of Jalen Johnson has just been stellar, adding in a veteran with CJ McCollum. Then you have guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who has been stretching his game out, being able to hit those corner threes. They play a fun brand of basketball. So that's the series that I'm keeping my eyes on, Chris, to start. And obviously, we have some Valley ties with Mikal Bridges, but I feel like the New York Knicks are always just so close. Is this the year, man? Is this the year? I truly wonder. I can't wait for those games to get kicked off. But let's move to the Western Conference. Obviously, last year's champions, OKC, are waiting to see who they will play. But the fourth seed Los Angeles Lakers will be taking on Kevin Durant and the young Houston Rockets in that 4-5 matchup. Then you have the 2023 NBA champion, the third seed Denver Nuggets, taking on the previous two-time appearance team, I guess you could say, in the Minnesota Timberwolves as the sixth seed. And then, wow, Victor Wembanyama, it's already come to fruition, has led his team to the second seed in the Western Conference. And of course, they will be taking on either the winner of the Phoenix Suns game or the Portland Trail Blazers. Chris, Western Conference, we know a lot of these teams. We've seen a lot of these guys multiple times matched up against the Phoenix Suns this season. What are your feelings about this side of the bracket for the 2026 NBA playoffs?
Mike, I'm not always trying to make it about me, all right? But I do have to say Victor Wembanyama could not lead me to a championship. So I don't know if he's quite ready to lead the Spurs to a championship. No, in all seriousness, I do think that the Spurs are playing a very good basketball. Victor Wembanyama is just a freak of nature, but he did miss a few games down the stretch. I think a lot of that was due to load management more than anything, but the Spurs, honestly, it's like they are one Victor Wembanyama injury away from not even being really a playoff team, to be honest with you. Now, De'Aaron Fox is still really good. They have a lot of other good pieces around that team. I think what Chris Paul came in and did last year with his veteran leadership really got this team set up for success, trending in the right direction. But I don't know, man. I don't want the Suns to have to play them. I will say that much. But then again, you can look at the other side. If they win their 7th seed, they're gonna have to play OKC. So it's like pick your poison. But that's the team everyone needs to worry about is the Oklahoma City Thunder, the champs from last year. They have the 2025, or I'm sorry, 2024, 2025 NBA MVP on their team. He's current favorite to win this year's MVP, go for the back-to-back, which we might get into that later on. But yeah, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren, the Oklahoma City Thunder are a force to be reckoned with. And their record, I don't think is really 64-18. Don't get me wrong. That is very impressive, but I think they could have won more games if they wanted to, but they have their eyes on the prize of going back to back and not really worrying too much about the regular season. As far as some of the other teams in here, I think you always have to be worried about the Denver Nuggets and Nikola Jokic. Jamal Murray is also a beast. And we talk about Valley ties and those guys that we love. Cam Johnson, he's on that squad now. Had a little bit of a down year, but I think he's still a good contributor on that squad. And you got to be wary of them. When we talk about contenders and pretenders, I think the Minnesota Timberwolves are more on the pretender side. I think the Lakers are just a little too banged up and a little bit too reliant on a 41-year-old man or 42-year-old man or however the heck old he is. Not sure if Luka's going to be 100%. I know Austin Reeves was a massive contributor to their success. He's been a little banged up as well. And then looking at that 9-10 play-in tournament, I'm not really too worried about either one of those teams, to be honest with you. Kawhi Leonard has had a really good season, played most of the games. Darius Garland's assimilated to that team nicely, but no shot the Warriors do anything here with no Jimmy Butler. And I think they're just on to next season, honestly.
Yeah, in the Western Conference, I think this is going to come down to basically like the NCAA tournament, man. It almost looks kind of chalk to me, especially those 1 through 3 seeds. So that's why the most intriguing matchup for me specifically is that fourth versus 5 Los Angeles Lakers versus the Houston Rockets. I think the Rockets had not as, as expected of a season as they wanted to, especially with adding in Kevin Durant, and some would say moving off of a kind of a wild card piece in Jalen Green. But I think they still had a great year. You obviously have to talk about their length is going to throw fits for anybody. And the big thing about this Los Angeles Lakers team right now is Luka even going to be able to suit up for this series? I don't think so. And if anything, he might be back for game 4 or 5. And what does the series already look like at that point? You're going to be treading water if you're the Los Angeles Lakers. And I know LeBron has kind of stepped back into his role that he's known for 20 plus years, but he's been a different player this year, playing third fiddle to both Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. So he's had to change up his game over the past 10 games, I would say. And does he have enough gas in the tank, to say the least, at this point? But that's the beauty of the playoffs, Chris. Anything is up for grabs at the end of the day. Obviously, I've talked to you about my thoughts in the first round specifically, where I honestly think the NBA should go back to 5-game series for the first round. But we know it's all about the dollar signs. That ain't happening anytime soon. And of course, once again, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves, because we still have to find out who fills out the rest of the matchups. And like we said, the NBA play-in tournament starts tomorrow, April 14th. In the East, 9 versus 10 matchup, Miami heading to Charlotte, who's making their first postseason appearance. And oh my God, it has to be close to a decade at this point, if not more. And they're tipping off tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Then we have 2 games on Wednesday, April 15th. The East 7-8 matchup, Orlando going to Philadelphia at 4:30 p.m. And then the West 9-10 matchup, Golden State heading to Los Angeles to play the Clippers at Intuit Dome at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Chris, it's crazy how time flies when you're having fun, right? This is technically the 6th season that the play-in tournament is going in its current format, because technically, if you can remember, and I had to kind of boost my memory about this technically started in 2020, where there was a game between the Portland Trail Blazers and the Memphis Grizzlies, and it was obviously different because of the bubble, but there was a threshold where I think if a team was within 4.5 games of that last seed, they had that basically one and done game, which Portland won. But of course, I did miss one game that I didn't name off in the playing game, because guys, it's the most important one for here in Phoenix. And obviously that is the Phoenix Suns taking on the Portland Trail Blazers tomorrow, April 14th at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time here in Phoenix at Mortgage Matchup Center. The Suns right now are currently 4.5 point favorites. The over-under is 217.5. Chris, what a pleasant surprise this Phoenix Suns squad has been this entire year. Obviously finishing 45-37 with a 25-16 home record. Portland had a great finish to their season as well, going 12-6 since Danny Avdija came back after he had re-aggravated a back injury in that February 22nd matchup against the Suns here in Phoenix. But let's be honest with ourselves. Portland is playing the best basketball of all teams in the play-in. They just beat the Clippers twice in the past week and a half to literally jump in front of them, as the Clippers held that 8th seed for a number of weeks. But they got some really solid contributors. Chris, you talk about the Gonzaga product in Donovan Clingan, your 2-time champion Drew Holiday, and of course, we have to shout out our former Suns second-round pick, Toumani Camara. But it does sound like big man Jeremy Grant, who is a great veteran presence for them, is a game-time decision. It really is unsure right now. It's sounding more possibly like he is unlikely to play. But before we get too far into it, we are less than 24 hours now from this game tipping off. Chris, give me your initial thoughts for this first play-in game for the Phoenix Suns as a franchise. They've never been there before. What are you thinking, man?
It's interesting, to be honest with you, and I still don't know how I feel about the play-in tournament in general. If anybody's seen the show before, I'm hypercritical of Adam Silver and his love for tournaments. He's put him in the middle of the season. Now he's put it at the end of the season. But I do think it is an interesting opportunity, and there's some precedent for interesting things to happen. No team has ever won the finals that entered the playoffs through the play-in. However, in 2023, the Miami Heat made it to the finals, which they're the furthest team to ever make it, and they were a 10th seed, getting it all the way to the finals. So it can be done. Now, I don't know if the Suns here are the same as that 2023 Miami team, but you never know. You never know till it happens. I think I would be lying if I said I wasn't nervous, but I am a little bit more, I guess I'm a little less nervous knowing that they have two shots at it, right? If they happen to lose the game tomorrow, they're still going to have that game against the winner of the 9-10 game. And that's either the Clippers or the Warriors. And I like our chances against any three of these teams. When I'm looking at the numbers, Mike, and I'm a big numbers guy, the Suns have beat the Portland Trailblazers 2 games out of 3 this year. And the one game that we did lose to Portland, there was no Devin Booker, no Dillon Brooks, and no Grayson Allen. We were pretty banged up. It was a 92-77 win for the Trailblazers in that one, so it wasn't close. But consider the roster, And Jalen Green was playing, which was nice for that point in the season because it looks like about 58 games in. So it was not that long ago, but still far enough in the past where I think allegedly the Suns are going to be at full strength. Now I know Grayson's been real banged up this season. He missed a lot of time, so not sure how much of a factor he'll be, but I really do like our chances in this one. And I think if not through the 7-8 matchup, we'll win the 8-9-10 matchup, whatever you consider it.
I like it. I like the main points that you bring up with that season series. The Suns are 2-1, but Chris, basically in every game, both of these teams were massively injured, right? You already alluded to the last time these teams matched up. No Dillon Brooks, no Devin Booker. And you also have to remember in that game, Danny Avdija hurt his back within the first 5 minutes of that game. Now, you did have some great contributions in that second matchup from Colin Gillespie, having a season-high 30 points, just absolutely exploded in that game. But I would be right alongside with you where the Trailblazers do present some challenges for this Phoenix Suns team. Like, you just got to think, I don't know if they're going to be able to easily play on their terms, just with the physicality that Portland brings. They have a lot of large wings with huge wingspans. They are continuously aggressive on the glass. They're going to grab and hold the Suns. I wonder how much that's going to factor into the foul counts and how often the Phoenix Suns are going to be at the foul line. But, as much as there has been discrepancies when we watch games in regard to the whistle that Devin Booker might not get, that is completely different for Danny Avdija, man. He seems to get a superstar whistle already. And he has had an absolutely stellar season. First-time All-Star, obviously. But I just keep going back to how big this team is. You talk about Donovan Clingan and Robert Williams III. I think Clingan is an absolute X factor, as well as one of their wings in Shaedon Sharpe, who did miss about 32 games with a leg injury, but he returned to the bench in those last 2 games. And obviously, we do know the Suns were sitting a couple of guys their last 2 games as well. Infamously, we sat 8 guys against the Oklahoma City Thunder. But it sounds like this is going to be all systems go, full strength for both teams outside of Portland, who might not have Jeremy Grant. But Chris, I know you kind of talked about it. Give us your kind of last insights of what you're thinking about this game and who you have coming out on top to be the 7th seed in this matchup.
Yeah, for me, the biggest stat, I guess you could say, and a reason Suns fans maybe should take a little bit of a sigh of relief is that since the inception of this tournament, and it's only been 5 play-ins before this will be the 6th, but a 7th seed has never failed to make the NBA playoffs through the play-in tournament since its inception. So I would hate to see the Suns be the first team to do that, and I really don't think they will. I will double down that if they don't win against Portland for whatever reason, they will have a good chance to win the next game. But I want to see them do it in this game, make a statement, and I think they have a really good shot. I mean, you bring up a lot of good points, Mike. They do have some good mean pieces, but like I was saying with some of those other teams that we looked at in the playoff bracket, still a little young, still a little green. Now, of course, with guys like Drew Holiday, they do have quite a bit of experience, but they also have some inexperience in your boy, Caleb Love, right? I don't know if he'll see the court, though. And, of course, the former Suns product, Toumani Camara, who had a bit of a breakout year. But, again, this is at, his second, third NBA season. So still a pretty young squad, all things considered. And I feel like the Suns are kind of right on that line of youth and experience at this point. And so I really do like their chances, man. I'm taking the Suns here.
Gotta love their chances, especially at home. That's what all this hard work went into, right? Like you said, you do have the 2 opportunities if you do drop this one. But this is why the play-in tournament is super intriguing. And especially as a Phoenix Suns fan, this is our first time experiencing it. And I think I'm always leaning into those winner go home scenarios. It's going to come down to what your superstars do. So I'm looking specifically at Danny Avdija. If you look at his 3-ball, he was shooting only 22% since January 11th going into that Sunday matchup against Sacramento, but he did shoot 5 of 9 from deep. So I think there's some positives going into this game, finding his stroke a little bit more. But then look at Book. Devin Booker scored 30-plus points in 3 straight. He's averaged 28 points per game since the All-Star break. It's going to come down to, I think, which defense holds tightest. Talk about the Phoenix Suns. After infamously the Ringer stated they might be the worst defense this league, they finished top 10 in the defense in 2026. And right now, Portland sits at about 21st in offense. But it's really going to, I think those guys could cancel each other out. So it's going to have to come down to if the Suns can get another bona fide scoring punch from one of their other contributors. It can either be Dillon, Jalen Green, or Colin Gillespie. You know, we talked about him scoring 30 in Portland. Play to that energy of the home crowd. This should absolutely be a Suns win, man. I think the pieces just overwhelmingly, well, okay, I won't say overwhelmingly, but they are going to favor the Phoenix Suns. But that's why this matchup, man, at the same time is so intriguing, because this is truly the first matchup this year that both teams are healthy. So this is going to be an absolute fun one. Can't miss it. Make sure it's on your calendar. Obviously, if the Suns win, they will play on Sunday, April 19th at 6 p.m. in San Antonio. And if they lose, they'll get a second crack at it. If they do win that second game, they will play on Sunday still, but earlier in the day at 12:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time in Oklahoma City against the previous champs. Chris, any last thoughts on this first ever play-in matchup for the Phoenix Suns, man? I'm getting goosebumps thinking about this game tomorrow. I cannot wait to see the energy in the building to back the Suns. But any last thoughts from you?
Yeah, man, it is exciting, honestly. And that's the last thing I do want to say, and just remind all the Suns fans, is that we're ahead of schedule, guys. If you go back to the first Pass the Outlet we did at the beginning of the season, and we went over our expectations for the Suns team, it's like, man, be about 500, maybe flirt with the playoffs, but we're not expecting you guys to make the playoffs. And now we're here at the 7th seed. Granted, it is the play-in, but we were just a stone's throw away from being a surefire playoff team. And now we could end up in the playoffs. Now, I already kind of alluded to it. I don't love our chances if we have to go up against the Spurs or the Thunder, but we made it. We made it, and we're going to have 7 potential chances to win a first round. And again, we're going to continue to move the goalposts a little bit as far as our expectations. But I think if the Suns do make the playoffs, and maybe even if they get swept by the Spurs, we still have to be happy with that and consider that we're building for something bigger. And that is what this Suns team is going to look like 1, 2, 3 years down the road, because we really thought we were going to be in for a long rebuild, but it looks like it might just end up being a quick reload. And that in and of itself is exciting.
Oh, I know the Valley can't wait. If you guys find yourself at the game tomorrow, make sure you get up, bring that energy, be appreciative of what this Phoenix Suns team has done all season long. Chris laid it all out for you. Man, the future is exciting. We got some truly nice young pieces, and I cannot wait to see what's going to happen in the very short future with this play-in tournament and then this hopeful eventual first-round matchup. And we'll be diving into it. But Chris, I think it's that time. It's time to dive into the news around the net with the social swish. So bring it to us tonight. What do you got, brother?
Yes, sir. I got a nice, clean little slate. I was looking for more of a diverse basketball story to just mix it up, because we're not just NBA. We also cover college, and so we've covered slam ball. We've interviewed slam ball. We've gone through all sorts of basketball. But I will be honest with you. I'll keep it real. I think this is NBA heavy, but I think that's okay. And I think it's appropriate given the fact that we are heading into the NBA playoffs and we just finished up the regular season. So I got some stories from the last month or so, and some things I wanted to get your opinion on, because Mike, I'm a highly opinionated guy. So I feel like you and I are usually in alignment on these things, but also giving the chat the opportunity to chime in as well, and they can comment as we go through these stories. So this first one is an article I have here from The Athletic, the New York Times. And Mike, I don't find myself agreeing with this person often, but here he makes a pretty good point. You might be familiar with this man, Draymond Green. And he was in a post game speaking on his idea to stop tanking. And I should have grabbed the clip to play, but I think a lot of people might have heard this story. But the gist of it was, he was basically saying that the NBA has no problem finding players for any number of things, to where, why don't they just fine the hell out of these teams when they tank? And I think, for my money, it's not so simple, as, although like I said, I do agree with him. Although, how do you define tanking, and what does that look like? Mike, what are your thoughts on this type of punishment for teams that are tanking?
This is a great and very intriguing thought from Draymond Green. It's not a bad idea, but how does it work? How do you really put it into play? I've heard a lot of different viewpoints in regard to what's happening with the tanking. And I heard one where it was basically like, I don't think NBA fans are really opposed to tanking. It's the fans that are opposed to the injury management and the fakeness that sometimes that contributes to. And I thought that was a smart point. I think, obviously, as NBA fans, our only goal when we are consuming the product is to see the best players play. And unfortunately, we've just seen a lot of those mainstays be unavailable for a lot of excessive time frames. Now, there's differences when guys are actually always hurt. You can talk about Joel Embiid, those kind of guys. But when teams like the Utah Jazz or the Sacramento Kings, the Washington Wizards are blatantly sitting guys down the stretch, and if you're a fan of a specific player or a team and you spend your hard-earned money to go to those games and guys just aren't showing up so you can get a better draft pick, going back to what I was saying, is I think tanking and injury management can go hand in hand at some point. And it's really hard to, slap any team on the wrist and say, hey, now don't do that, until you start getting the wallets involved. So I think we are on a crash course for this happening sooner rather than later. How is it really developed? And what do those dollar signs look like? Because I think you have to start looking into the 6-7 figures in order to really get teams to knock it off. But also, it's almost kind of like legal checks and balances. What documents are they going to need in order to implement these fines for teams that aren't playing their players when they truly should be, who are tanking and giving up games? Infamously, you talk about that Utah Jazz game where they were up by 14, 15 points going into the fourth quarter, and then they sit all of their starters, and then all of a sudden Jaren Jackson Jr. is hurt for the rest of the year. Like, there are clear-cut situations, I think, but it's going to get sticky until you really find what is proof, and then go ahead, just find the hell out of people. I'm okay with it, Draymond. Let's do it.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there. And it is tough, right? Because with tanking, it's, if you sit down and come to like some collective bargaining agreement or some owners meeting, and you clearly define what tanking is, then these teams will just go around that definition and find other ways to do it. They're very clever like that. So it's with tanking, it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, you can't necessarily define it. There's not like a one size fits all definition for it, but you know it when you see it. Like you mentioned, that game where the Utah Jazz pull everyone, or there was another instance I had heard about. I don't remember the player's name. I think it happened in a couple instances, but a team had basically signed a G League guy to a 10-day contract, this guy that had been playing overseas, and then he was playing 40 minutes a night and just doing terrible. And then at the end of his 10-day contract, they cut him. And then they rinsed and repeated and got another 10-day contract guy and just ran him out there. So it's like, you can't tell me that if you really need players, there aren't viable options for you out there to where you try to be competitive. So that alone kind of tells me like, maybe you guys aren't necessarily trying to be competitive, and that's where you could find it. But then you start getting into, what is it, litigiousness, whatever. These teams will start fighting back against the NBA on this stuff, but there is somewhat of a precedent for it. Famously in 2023, the Dallas Mavericks got fined $750,000 for resting healthy players to manipulate the draft lottery. And I think if I'm reading here correctly, it was back in 2018, Mark Cuban himself was fined $600,000 for publicly admitting to tanking. So the Mavericks clearly are not shy of tanking and doing it open in the public. But that's the other thing, Mike, because I agree with it. It has to be much heftier, because we see $25,000, $50,000, $60,000 fines to the players who are millionaires most of the time. But these teams are like, when you're talking about billion-dollar valuations and their access to capital, if they're getting a $500,000 fine, they sneeze and make that in a night down at the arena. So I don't know, man. I really don't know what you do to curb it. While we have this article up and we're kind of, actually, I think I can tie it into another post here we have for the Social Swish, which of course, as you mentioned, is news from around the net. And this one, let me make sure I pull it up properly, because this kind of goes hand in hand with what we're talking about. And we are at the end of the season now. Granted, there is still some wiggle room here, depending on how some of these games change out. But Mike, I want to take a look at the NBA lottery draft odds, which are out now that the regular season is over, and we see the top three teams. Current shakeup has the top three teams all having 14%, or I guess the bottom three teams. So here you see the Wizards, the Pacers, the Nets, Jazz, Kings, Grizzlies, Hawks, yada yada yada. My thought process is, and this is what I want to ask you for your opinion on. Do you think it could potentially dissuade tanking, and would it still be fair if you gave the top 14 teams all even lottery odds?
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, now that's thinking outside the box, Chris, because that's going to get teams looking down the stretch. If you're like, well, what's going to get me the best odds? Probably around 18 to 22 wins. Well, if you have a team that has been fighting for playoff position down the stretch and they end up kind of being the outside looking in, that 11 seed finishes with, I don't know, look at the Suns from last year, 35 wins, right? I mean, they were still trying to figure things out as the season was going along. There was a lot more problems in that locker room, obviously, but having the same odds as somebody who was messing around the entire season, purposely losing games, comparative to a team that was fighting towards the end, and then you put one ping pong ball, that's it, one ping pong ball into the little spinner and let the chips fall where they may. That's, I think, where we're getting closer to. If it's not going to be speaking with wallets, you got to find some type of way to even the odds here, because I think finally I have the outlet, Chris. Literally, I have been talking about the Indiana Pacers for a couple of months now, and how I have honestly been absolutely disgusted with how this entire season played out. It was basically like, as soon as Tyrese Halliburton tore his Achilles last year, they threw in the white towel before the end of the season truly began, before free agency, before anything. You saw them let guys like Miles Turner walk. You saw them just, start shipping off decent pieces like Benedict Mathurin, who was a bona fide scorer. And like, the Pacers needed that this entire year, right? And then specifically, it's funny, you talk about getting selfish. I'm going to get selfish a little bit here. I had Nembhard and Pascal Siakam the entire stretch of the last 4 weeks of the season where I needed them to compete. They were purposely sitting out games left and right, and then magically coming back, playing, and then not playing for another game because of the injury management. For them to have the same type of odds to possibly get the first overall pick after going to the NBA Finals last year is utterly absurd. You're basically giving them an opportunity to add a huge piece that could change their fortune once again, after there's no way that you lose, yes, a huge cog in Tyrese Halliburton. But for them to have 20 wins this year was just, come on, that Chris, that never should have happened. They were a way better team than that. So I was just completely, utterly disgusted and disappointed in what Indiana did this year. So finally, I had the outlet to let it out, and I probably could have went worse. Just I've been feeling this way for so long. You can only stew on it for so much, but yeah, one ping pong ball. All these teams put it in, let the chips fall where they may.
I think it's beautiful because it comes out, if you still do 14 teams, it's about a little over about 7.25% chance that your ball is going to land there. And I know, as far as I know, I don't think it's just one spin. There's this huge process, and they come out with a stack of papers a foot high where they ran the simulation 24 times or whatever. However they decide to do it, giving all the teams the same odds, I think, is probably the fairest way. The other idea that a lot of people have floated around is just eliminating the draft altogether and just sending these players straight into free agency. But I kind of hate that, because then it's just going to go to whatever team. I mean, in theory, whatever team has the highest highest cap space available will be able to sign one of these guys to a ridiculously high contract. Not to mention that it would ruin small market teams, and where free agents already don't want to go there, and a rookie doesn't want to start his career on a bad team. So the bad teams will just stay bad. And that's the idea of the NBA draft and drafts in general, is so that teams that did worse can get better. But if you're going from the NBA Finals to the second pick in the draft, it's just not a great look, Mike. And I've heard you had the same complaint throughout the season and talking about the Pacers, and it's disgusting because you're right. They're going to get a pretty good rookie. This is a pretty solid draft class. Even if for some reason they end up with the 4th or 5th pick, they're still going to get a pretty solid young piece. They're going to get Tyrese Halliburton back next year, and we'll see what happens. They still got Siakam and Zubac and a few other pieces where I agree. I think they could have been more competitive this season had they actually put their best foot forward, but they knew without Tyrese Halliburton, their chances of a deep run were virtually none. And I mean, the Wizards too. I mean, what are the Wizards doing? They got Trae Young and Anthony Davis and still ended up with the worst record. I mean, granted, I know Anthony Davis, I don't think he played a lick for the Wizards. I don't think he's put on the jersey for him yet. And say what you will about Trae Young, but I don't know, man. I like my idea. We'll see what Adam Silver comes up with in the offseason, because I can tell that he's not happy about it. He's not thinking that it's great for the brand. And as hard as I am on the guy, I think he truly does want to see the NBA succeed as a product, which makes sense because his job kind of depends on it. But Mike, for the sake of time, let's keep it pushing. Got a few more here. And I would be remiss if I didn't head over to our friends on Reddit now. I know our best friends on Reddit are on r/Suns, but unfortunately, over the last month or so, they haven't really been bringing the heat. So they didn't make the cut this time. Going to need them to step it up to join us next time. But Mike, I do have one here from r/NBA memes and user Trexty. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. And this one hits a little close to home. He said, KD wasn't lying. His worst season really is Dillon Brooks' best season. And it shows a comparison here. Dillon Brooks' best season, 20.3 points per game, 3.7 rebounds, 1.8 assists, to Kevin Durant's worst season, which it looks like it's his rookie season with the Seattle Supersonics, where he averaged 20.3 points, 4.4 rebounds, and 2.4 assists per game. Mike, we know this isn't really a fair comparison to compare Kevin Durant to Dillon Brooks, but it was just a week or so ago when these two teams faced off. I think you were at that game and there were some words exchanged. Is this a fair comparison or just kind of something funny for the internet to laugh at?
Oh, it's a good old chuckle factory. This isn't something that we need to be discussing truly, but I do love that you brought it up. I'm talking about overall as a whole. There's different levels to this. That's what people will say. At the same time, Dillon Brooks, they call him the villain for a purpose, but if he's going to be punching out of his weight class, he's got to step up to the table and be able to really take in those kind of comments. And I think, he doesn't hold anything against anybody who brings that up, But it is funny, these stats are probably Kevin Durant's rookie year when he was with the Supersonics in Seattle. So, but man, I'm not going to discredit what Dillon Brooks has done for us. We tried the Kevin Durant situation. Overall, Chris, we think about it, it was a tumultuous 2.5 years. Yes, it didn't pan out with the successes that we wanted. But Kevin Durant played, I think, to the best of his ability within our situations, but there are limitations, I think, to what Kevin Durant is willing to do as a team, as a teammate, as a person to bring together a unit, where there is differences with Dillon Brooks. Dillon Brooks is the glue guy. You've seen that in every stop that he's been to, going back to his starting days in Memphis, to his few seasons in Houston, them being the second seed last year in the Western Conference. And now exactly what he's done for this Phoenix Suns team is exactly what he's done in every stop that he's made in the NBA. So while numbers do paint a certain picture to a certain extent, man, we know that basketball is not just about what you're bringing from a scoring numbers. There are just so many different ways to impact games. And it's been awesome to see what Dillon has done this year, because he has contributed from a scoring standpoint, but he just means so much more. Let's be honest, Chris, he means so much more to the team morale, I think, than Kevin Durant ever did. If that's a contentious point, I'd be willing to have a debate with anybody, but just look at the factors which has happened this year. You talk about everybody who was marking the Phoenix Suns as the 14th or 15th team coming out of the West, teams saying they were going to be one of the worst defensive teams in this year in the NBA. And it was all different. And I think a lot of that was because of Dillon Brooks' leadership. So this is just, what did I say? It's a chuckle factory. It's a chuckle fest. Yeah, but it's a good one. It is technically true, but Dillon Brooks' one season here was better than any season that Kevin Durant had for the Phoenix Suns. And that's a fact.
Oh, without a doubt. And I think Dillon Brooks is self-aware enough to know that, like you said, there are levels to this, and he's not necessarily on Kevin Durant's level. Although when you play in the NBA at a high level, you are one of the best, and Dillon Brooks is one of the best in the world playing in the NBA. However, I would also agree with your point about the leadership, although I wish he would cut down on the technical fouls and lead a little bit better in that regard. But you see it with the way he's kind of built that camaraderie with Colin Gillespie and the villain Jr. and even being embraced by the fans, because yeah, Kevin Durant I'm not going to sit here and say he did nothing for the Suns. Like, he hit big shots and he scored a lot of points in a Suns uniform, and there were some fun times, but we also are left after he's gone asking questions of, was he a hindrance on Devin Booker's career? Was he a hindrance on this Suns team? And we are stuck with more what if questions than good memories to look back on. Like, what if we kept Mikal Bridges? What if we didn't trade Cam Johnson? I mean, you got to live in the present, and we can't dwell on the past. And I think that's what a lot of Suns fans are doing. So I think as a Suns fan, I see a post like this and I laugh, because like you said, Mike, it's true. It's funny, but we don't have any delusion that Dillon Brooks is going to be Kevin Durant. But what he does bring to this team in a lot of ways is more than Kevin Durant ever did. And I mean, we'll see what happens with this run in the playoffs. We'll see if Dillon Brooks suits up for this team next year. I have very little reason to think he won't, although I do have some opinions on the possibility of all three of our main shooting guards returning for all intents and purposes. Dillon Brooks, Jalen Green, Devin Booker. It's a bit of a logjam for the ball dominant guards. Although I think you might say Dillon Brooks is like a 3. Would he be a 3, or would you consider him a 2?
I would put him at a 3 still. I think with his matchups, specifically on the defensive end, he's able to guard some of those bigger forwards. So that's how I would classify him in that regard. I mean, obviously he still puts up a good amount of shots. He does handle the basketball to get into his action, but I'd still label him as maybe an undersized 3, but what he gives up in height, he matches with strength. And that's why you still see him guarding some of the best forwards in the NBA night after night. So.
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right. But I think for me, it's him. I don't know. He has some, and I don't want to undig up any trauma for Suns fans, but he does kind of have those Eric Bledsoe tendencies sometimes that make me just have a little bit of pain in my chest and have some war flashbacks.
Come on, Chris. You don't think super fondly back of those days? You remember us sitting in section 109, pretty close to the floor, when he almost was slamming into the stanchion, driving, jumping with no recourse or reckless abandon? You didn't have fun during the 2010s, Chris. Come on.
I don't want to be here anymore. All right. Last one I got for you, Mike. And we mentioned his name already. And I don't know how much longer we can say Valley Ties, because eventually he's going to be gone longer than he was here. But we have to mention and we have to give props. I think you know where I'm going here. Your boy, Mikal Bridges. This is from Legion Hoops on X. The Knicks plan to rest all of their starters today except Mikal Bridges so he can keep his consecutive games played streak alive. Bridges hasn't missed a game since high school, 753 straight games. Iron Man for real. He's one of, I think, 4 players this year that played every single game, and he has done so in every single season of his NBA career. Now, some people try and discredit it because he did earn this accomplishment by playing only 23 seconds in the game yesterday. Yeah, not minutes, seconds, but he played, and he would have played longer had his coach wanted him to, but coach wanted to rest him. Mikal said, no, I'm an Iron Man. I need to get my games played, and I respect it. So I think it counts. It's not like he's injured. It's not like he's load managementing it. I mean, he is against his will, but it's not like he's intentionally like, yo, I need the day off. He's not pulling a Cattell Marte or anything. What kind of, I think we talk about this every year, and we're going to continue to talk about it every year as long as he keeps the streak up. But what does it mean in the modern era, Mike, for an NBA player to play all 82 games of the season?
I mean, you can go back to the first article that you brought up about tanking, Chris, and how I brought up the factor of injury mismanagement, if you want to call it that. This is one guy that you can count on night in, night out to perform and be there for his team. As BSP Tallman would say, the best availability, or is it, what is it? The best ability is availability or accountability. Close enough. You guys know what I'm saying. Mikal Bridges is the epitome of a player where I know a lot of people sometimes get a little bit miffed about buying jerseys for your specific team for an actual player. If Mikal Bridges plays on your team, buy his jersey, wear it proudly, and continue to wear it proudly after he leaves, because he is somebody who leaves everything out on the floor for his teammates, for his city that he's representing, man. He did that the entirety of his time here in Phoenix. He did it the entirety of his time going back to Villanova. But I mean, it's just, man, it truly is impressive. 753 straight games is truly crazy, man. And it's funny to think about because we've had some of these similar type of streaks be a little bit contentious, right? You talk about LeBron James's, I think, 10 plus point streak where he was kind of out there just chucking it. You can talk about Bam's 82-point game as well, where the team was hunting fouls to get extra possessions and force feeding him the ball. You know, that's why I don't have a problem with a 23-second step on the floor, especially in a game where everybody knew the starters weren't going to play. Let that streak keep going, because, you know, normally 81 games out of the rest of the season, you're going to get a full sprint effort from Mikal, man. Hats off to him. We truly miss him here. And I know you joked about, you know, how long do the Valley Ties go away after you've been so long? Because it's getting up there, man, Chris. But you also know what that means. His contract is coming up too. So there always is a glimmer of hope that we can bring our boy back. But hey, let's give a shout out to Hayes Taplin. Appreciate you hopping on. Love the content. Absolutely give you a shout out. We appreciate everybody who's joining us tonight. That's why we have the comments. Drop in, leave us your thoughts. We might respond to them as the stream goes on, but we appreciate everybody who's joined tonight.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And if you miss us when we're live, we're always available for the playback right here on YouTube and audio only next day, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But Mike, I agree with you, man. I hope and pray for Mikal Bridges reunion. And I think it would be awesome. His contract is coming up. And I think that would be a piece that would make the Suns fans really happy. It just depends on how he would fit in with the team, but huge accomplishment. It's hard, whether he's a Sun or not, or he's a Knick or wherever he ends up. it is always good to see Mikal Bridges succeed because he is just a good guy. He's a fun guy, and I like his game. But Mike, that was the social swish news from around the net, and we'll bring it back on the next episode of Pass the Outlet.
Chris, great work. You always bring the goods. I truly appreciate it. But obviously, we know what that means. It's time to move into the outlet point guard, one of my favorite segments of Pass the Outlet nowadays. Obviously, if you are new with us tonight, this has changed over the years, man. And this has kind of gone into our little trip down memory lane as Mr. Benjamin, used to be a Phoenix Suns ball boy, and my dad was a longtime Phoenix Suns season ticket holder. We still are, but when I was a kid, I was huge into basketball cards, and I would go before the games and primarily sit on the visiting side tunnels when those players would come in, and I'd bring all my cards with the players that were on that team and get cards signed. I have hundreds of them. And a lot of these guys are from the mid 2000s to the late 2010s. So, man, it's getting up there. As we get into 2026, a lot of these guys have not played in a number of years, almost close to a decade plus now. But tonight, since the Phoenix Suns are matching up against the Portland Trailblazers, I thought it was a perfect time to reminisce on one of, man, you could almost call him the son of the Pacific Northwest. This guy is held in such favor to the Portland Trailblazers fan base. I might go to the point, man, Chris, in the past 30 years, I'd say he's probably number 2 on the list, just behind Damian Lillard as a lot of Portland Trailblazers favorite. Man, well, I hope you know, we're talking about the one, the only Brandon Roy. B-Roy, the 6'6", 210 guard. He was the 6th overall pick in the 2006 NBA draft after playing 4 seasons for the Washington Huskies. But man, his story is truly filled with trials and tribulations and great successes. But let's start at the beginning, Chris. Back at Garfield High School in Seattle, he was absolutely considered one of the state's best high school players, actually number 36 in the nation overall. And I didn't know this, was an early candidate entry for the 2002 NBA draft straight from high school, which I believe was the same draft as Amari Stoudemire.
Dang.
But he later withdrew to attend the University of Washington, where after his junior year, once again, he considered entering the draft, but then he changed his mind when his then teammate and double guy, because I think he played football too, Nate Robinson entered the NBA draft. So he ended up playing all 4 years under coach Lorenzo Romar, including a stellar season where he averaged 20.2 points, was named the Pac-10 Player of the Year, and led the Huskies to a 26-7 record. And it's safe to say his NBA career started off with a bang, because the then team captain, Zach Randolph, was traded to the Knicks, and it opened the way immediately for Roy to take on a leadership role for that Trailblazers ball club. And it started off hot. He was the almost unanimous Rookie of the Year in 2007. He made his first All-Star team in his second season and his first All-NBA team in his third season. In his fourth season, made another All-NBA team. But by December of 2010, in his 5th season in Portland, that's when his unfortunate health demise started to show in his knees, which had bothered him since college. And it's infamously known that it ailed him because of a lack of cartilage in his knees, which is just truly crazy to think of him playing through that. But by January 2011, Roy underwent arthroscopic surgery on both of his knees. He did come back and help the Blazers match up against the eventual champion Dallas Mavericks in the first round of the playoffs that year. But after that, it really was just too much, and he announced his retirement from the NBA. But he did have a swan song in June 2012. He announced he was planning to make a comeback to the NBA after he had recovered from a platelet-rich plasma procedure, which was actually the same procedure that Kobe Bryant utilized to keep his knees healthy over his 20-plus year career. But it showed, man. He only averaged 5.8 points and 4.6 assists during the 2012-2013 season. And then he was released in May of 2013, which that's when he hung him up and he moved on to different ventures in his life. But it's a great story, Chris, because it all came to full circle in 2017 as he became the boys basketball coach at his alma mater, Garfield High School in Seattle, where he, I believe, still coaches to this day. There was a time, I think in 2022, where he left the team, but I believe he still coaches now. And like I said, man, it truly is a career of highs, lows, and just he might be one of the ultimate what if players to go alongside one of the other famous Portland Trailblazers, Greg Oden. But great career in such a short time frame, averaged 18.8 points, 4.7 assists, and 4.3 rebounds. Chris, when you think of Brandon Roy, what are some of the first things that come to your mind?
Man, just one of the best shooting guards at the time. And really, I think what separated Brandon Roy from a lot of other players at that time is his ability to score on all three levels. He was a three-point shooter, had a good mid-range shot, and could take you to the hoop. So you would really say he was a tough guard. And even Kobe Bryant once called Brandon Roy one of the toughest players to guard. And, it's high praise coming from arguably the greatest shooting guard of all time. Now, some might say that's Dwayne Wade, but I would say that it's Kobe Bryant. Man, Brandon Roy, I always do this, Mike. I always do this, and I'm starting to hate myself for it, but you know where I'm going. You know where I'm going. You love to use Brandon Roy in NBA 2K. Playing 2K against my brother, especially around this time where we would just go, I wasn't doing career mode or anything. I was just playing people, and I would use the Trailblazers, man. I would use the Trailblazers because they were a young, exciting team. I want to say LaMarcus Aldridge was on these teams with Brandon Roy, and man, it was a good player to be able to play with, and you can just see the athleticism here, and it's tough when a guy his career is cut short through no fault of his own. And at the young age of just 27 years old to have to hang him up, that's tough, man. Because as we say here at Valley Sports Plug, you're not really past your prime until you're 30. And his career was cut down right in the middle of his prime. And his resume, even for just the short sample size, is really impressive. You mentioned the multiple time All-Star appearances, NBA second team in 2009, NBA third team in 2010, the Rookie of the Year honors, Pac-10 back then, Player of the Year in college. This guy was a hooper, and we would have loved to see him play longer. Just unfortunately wasn't able to go the distance. And I wonder if he was in the league now, if there might be more procedures or medical options available to him that could extend his career. But again, can't be stuck on the past asking what if. But I'm glad that even though his career was short, Brandon Roy still gets his flowers and gets recognized at one of the best to ever do it.
And, I got to go back and watch some of his post interviews, years after his time in the league, because, as I touched on it, he was thinking about coming into the league in the 2002 NBA draft right out of high school. Now, there's a lot of extenuating factors that can come into, well, would he have been, a man enough or adult enough to really handle the busyness and the craziness that comes with the NBA lifestyle at 18 years old? There's only been a handful of guys that have done it and really stuck around for so long within the league. There's others that flame out, and there's others that run with the wrong crew. So I wonder how much of spending 4 years at Washington really molded into the man that he was, stepping right into this Portland franchise and becoming the guy immediately, man. He truly was one of the best to ever do it for that franchise that's been around for a long time, and it has won titles in the 1970s and has some all-time greats, man. That's for sure. But it's great that you bring up kind of like, you don't want to live in the past, but it also is very intriguing at the same time to, I'd love to pick his brain, and I'm sure there are some conversations out there on YouTube or just general, interviews that he's done where I wonder if he really feels like he had a career fulfilled specifically in the NBA. Because if you ask Portland Trail Blazers fans, general NBA fans, people who grew up around the game around that time frame, I would say 1,000% he should feel that way. And it's not just from the accolades and the numbers that he brought, but he brought energy back to Portland, man. Because if you think after his time frame that he left, it was a number of years before they went back to the playoffs, where Dame infamously hit that three on the Houston Rockets. And I think maybe it was the 2018 or 2019 playoffs, but it was quite a few years after Brandon Roy had left that franchise. And overall, as a player, man, I mean, I loved what he did, because especially at that time frame when I was about 20, between 18 to 22, 23 years old, I was the same size as Brandon Roy. He's 6'6". I'm 6'6". I was 210. I tried to emulate what he brought with his ability to score around the perimeter, to be a mid-range assassin, and to still use his size to attack the basket. And I think one of the bigger parts of his game was just always unafraid of the moment, always wanted the basketball when it came down to finishing out a game or putting his team over that finish line. And man, he was just one of the best to ever do it in such a short time frame. And I feel like a lot of us were robbed, unfortunately, from seeing his complete true potential, and an absolute 100% Hall of Fame nod by the end of all that you would have said by the end of Brandon Roy's career. But man, I think, the way that you talk about, you go back to the NBA 2K part of it all, using those players that we've been going through on the outlet point guard in. I specifically am starting to bring back a bunch of these guys specifically for games that they had against the Phoenix Suns, because if you look in this picture that we have right here, he's going up against some of our favorites, Channing Frye and Steve Nash. But I will never forget, I think it was a game of December in 2008. The Suns were still really good. They had just traded for Shaq. They were still in their playoff time frame where they were consistently winning over 50 games. He dropped a career-high 52 on Amari, Steve, Shaquille O'Neal, Grant Hill, Matt Barnes, just utterly dominating them, and had some daggers down the stretch against us. So I will never forget that game specifically. So Chris, don't feel alone when you say NBA 2K. I'm starting to think like, well, now I just remember games where these guys killed the Suns. But man, what an absolute awesome guy. Got to make sure to show this one off once again. This is a 2006 Topps rookie card, Brandon Roy from the Portland Trailblazers, the 6th overall pick, with his B. Roy number 7 signature on it. Chris, we're just scratching the surface with these guys for the outlet point guard, so I can't wait to see who's going to be on the next episode of the outlet point guard, and we're going to continue to have some fun. But Chris, that was Past the Outlet episode 37. We are less than 23 hours now until the Phoenix Suns are taking on the Portland Trailblazers to see if they can secure that 7th seed. The NBA playoffs are so close to truly kicking off again. You brought some awesome stories for us to dissect today, and then we went over a Pacific Northwest legend in Brandon Roy. I thought it was a jam-packed episode. We had a lot of people join us tonight, so I appreciate you guys hopping in and joining us along the way. But before we get out of here, Chris, I'll pass it over to you so you can finish us off, and then we'll get out of here.
Thanks, Mike. It's always a pleasure to get on here and talk hoops with you. I know we were a day early this week, normally going live on Tuesdays, but had to get ahead of the Suns game tomorrow, which brings me to my last point. Get out there tomorrow if you can, or if not, watch it from home, tune in on the radio, support your Suns, send them your positive energy, and let's hope for a win against Portland. And I think we're going to do it, man. I think we're going to do it. I really do like what this Suns team is doing. I know I can be Mr. Negative here on the Valley Sports Plug Network sometimes, but for right now, I'm feeling positive, and then we'll look at the first playoff series when and if we get there. But positive vibes, good energy. And Mike, thank you so much for Past the Outlet tonight. I love putting your collection to use, and I think we've had some great picks and look forward to the future ones. But Mike, what about you, man? What you got?
I'm glad we're getting use out of this, because I ain't selling this stuff. Are you kidding me? This is absolute collector's item that will go down in my generations moving forward. And hopefully in 50 years, we're looking at, oh, who was that Brandon Roy guy? And they get to have a great time like we did tonight. But Chris, I always appreciate it. Like you said, a day early, we had to make sure that we got on the 1s and 2s before the matchup tomorrow. In the future, as Valley Sports Plug continues to grow, I'm sure we'll do watch-alongs and that kind of stuff. But we are fans. We want to enjoy the game tomorrow as well. So we appreciate everybody joining us tonight. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to us on Valley Sports Plug YouTube. You can follow us at all socials, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, at AZ_VSP to see what's going on, what new streams are coming at you. We stream every week, like we said, normally Tuesdays around 7 p.m. So make sure you tap in with us next time. But I'm Michael Benjamin. That's Chris Patrick. We will see you guys next time. And go Suns, baby. Let's go.